恭敬应大德圣听，为此法会及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suche doye olahadi samya sanputoshe.
Namo saranto suche doye alahadi samya sanputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿皆如来真实义。Together down below, it's the last stanza there. Here we go. Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dhamma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. Somebody put your fingers on that thermostat and get some heat in here. Everybody's cold. And we don't want people to come in and think, gee, that's a nice lecture, but I can't stand it. It's freezing in that monastery. What's with those monks? So we want to make sure that everybody, at least their bodies, don't have to suffer. We want your minds to suffer, because you're going to just suffer. All the Buddhists are all suffering all the time, you understand that. But the body shouldn't have to suffer as a result of our practices. So, good evening, everybody. Today is November 17. We're here in Berkeley, California. And my name is Heng Sure. We're going to be looking at the Garland Sutra. And in order to do that, we want to first invoke spiritual presence. Right here, you should have this in front of you on your seat. This is our sutra text, and it's got the names of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who brought the sutra to us. We're going to chant those names and do it as it's an invocation. Another way to say invitation, hoping that they will draw near and lend their light and presence to what we're about to do tonight. So we chant it in Chinese. We'll get it into English one of these days. And we do it to a melody. That's the melody. And we say Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Okay? Gives everybody a chance to practice some Mandarin sounds coming out of your own mouth. It's kind of fun. So try it. See what you think. Here we go. Namo Ta Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa Namo Ta Fang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Fo Pusa Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Fo Pusa Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Fo Pusa Namo Da Fang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Fo Pusa Namo Da Fo Pusa. Last time. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Wei Fo Pusa. Okay, we can park that request sheet underneath. And please turn with me to pages 58 and 59. So, lots of new friends here tonight. Welcome. What's going on? What are we doing? We're looking at a Buddhist text. This is words the Buddha spoke. Some people say 2,500 years ago. And we've now got them in English, along with Chinese. Our teacher, Master Shen Hua, spent 9 years explaining this text. Every night, 9 years. So it was clearly a priority for him that people in America and elsewhere got a chance to hear what the Buddha was saying. So we've been translating. It's a long process of getting it into English and then getting that English into English, so it's digestible and understandable. And then we have to take a crack at the Dharma in it and say, do we understand what he's saying? We can make sense of it grammatically, but what's going on in that text? So that's what we're about. This is called the 10 Stages chapter, Dashabhumi, Shidipin in Chinese. This is out of 40 chapters in the whole sutra. This is number 27, number 26, chapter 26, out of 40. So it's more than halfway through, and it's one of the longer chapters, but it only has one main theme, which is, what's a bodhisattva? Describing what a bodhisattva, an awakened being. What is an awakened being? How do they think? How do they talk? How do they act? That's what it's about. And it's like instructions. It's how-to. So, on one hand, this is a spiritual classic. If you were to collect it into, world religions class, it would be right there with books from the Bible, or the Quran, or the Upanishads. But it's not like any spiritual classic I've read in this regard. It's meant to be walked with. It's like a PDF file that you get with your washing machine to tell you how to set it up and how to run it. It's a how-to manual. It's instructions for daily use should somebody want to become bodhisattva-like, If you wanted to do what Bodhisattvas do, here's how. And that's what it is. It's how to do it. And we've been going through it for years now, this one chapter, chapter 26. And we're now at the 9th out of 10 stages. We're almost done. We've been plowing through it bit by bit, week by week, year by year. And the 9th stage is, he's about to graduate. He's pretty much done it. But not quite. There's still more to learn. And we've just begun the 9th stage. We spent months passing through the 8th stage, and that had its own teachings, and we pointed out some of the patterns, language, ideas in it. So here we are now at the 9th stage, just at the beginning of it. And we're kind of figuring out what there is to learn here. Okay? So by saying what I just said, what I'm trying to do is demystify. Pull it out of the clouds and not put it on the ground. It's on the ground already. Just want to pull our understanding of something that's what else did you meet today that was 2,500 years old, other than the rocks and the water and the wind and the fire? That's old. But this is something that humans came up with. This is of human creation, 2,500 years. It's been in our gene pool. It's been with us in our culture and our heritage for all those years. Here we are in Northern California with the Flower Garland Sutra on our bowing bench. That's pretty amazing all by itself. It's maybe the oldest thing you've touched today, right? I hope. So here we are. The Chinese name for it is the Huayan Jing. The Sanskrit name is Avatamsaka. And English, we're calling it now the Flower Garland. So that's now we're kind of focusing in on what this is. Okay? So far so good. Now, on page 58, 59, we're right up at the top. Disciples of the Buddha, when the Bodhisattva Mahasattva. Right there. Okay? Everybody find that spot? We're on the left side, 58, and we have a bilingual text, and we honor the source of where we got it. Master Hua, again, explained it in Chinese, and we translated it on the spot and then collected on tape what he said, and now we're bit by bit trying to digest and really put it into English. So that's why we've got 2 languages here. All right, I'm going to give you the Chinese, and if you can't read the characters, look at the romanization, the ABCs underneath. Like F-O-Z-I, right? Fo, zi, that's where we're starting. P-U-S-A, Pusa, Bodhisattva. Mohasa, Mahasattva, like that. So we'll do that in Chinese, then we're going to slip over to the English and do the English. All right, everybody ready? I'm going to put my palms together. You're welcome to do that if you care to. Here we go. Fo zi, Pusa Mohasa, Zhu ci shan hui di, Ru shi zhi, 善不善，无记法横，有漏无漏法横。Okay， 世间处世间法横，思意不思意法横。These are long sentences. Usually we do 4 by 4, but that's not how they're coming today. So, 定不定法横，声闻独觉法横，菩萨行法横。Or 菩萨行法横 also. Okay. 如来地法横。有为法横，无为法横。All right, good. Over to the right, we're going to start page 59 now, Disciples of the Buddha. We do this in unison. We read it all together. And unison is based essentially on your breath. So punctuation works for us to help us do it all together. When we read together. It's really nice. It's a nice sound. Everybody's voices in harmony. And we follow the commas, the periods, the white spaces to know when to pause, when to recite. Okay, here we go. Ready? Together? Disciples of the Buddha, comma, pause. When the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, abides on this stage of wholesome wisdom, comma, he knows the reality of wholesome, unwholesome, and indeterminate Dharma practices. He knows the reality of Dharma practices with outflows and those without outflows, of worldly and world-transcending Dharma practices, of conceivable and inconceivable Dharma practices, of fixed and unfixed Dharma practices, of sound hearers and of solitary Buddhas' Dharma practices, of Bodhisattvas' Dharma practices, of Dharma practices on the stage of the Tathagatas, Sanskrit word, of conditioned Dharma practices, and of unconditioned Dharma practices. There you go. Good. Thank you. Okay. This is a description of what's different about our Bodhisattva here. Disciples of the Buddha. When the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, meaning the great Bodhisattva among Bodhisattvas, the super Bodhisattva, stays on the stage of wholesome wisdom. Wholesome wisdom is the name of the ninth stage. He knows ready? Here's the pattern. The reality of, it's in Chinese is ru shi zhi, like it really is. He knows like it really is what? Wholesome, unwholesome, and indeterminate Dharma practices. Okay, what's that? Karma. Karma. Karma is definitely one of those words that you don't have to be a Buddhist or anything close to a Buddhist, and you'll run into the word karma. Hindus, or the whole bunch of religions gathered around what's called Hinduism, works with the word karma, and here in US of A, we've adopted that word and pretty much misunderstood the way the Buddhists and the Hindus meant karma to be. Mostly when I grew up, karma meant bad. You know, oh man, karma's going to get you. And it was like, meaning you're in trouble now, right? Watch out, because it's going to get you. And that's a misunderstanding of the... By the way, you all are sitting back there without any... There's a bunch of empty seats up here. Please grab them while they're empty. Okay? I don't want you to keep pushing back and back and back. The next group that comes in won't have anywhere to even like squat, right? So fill in those empty seats, please. So karma meant bad. You don't want it. Nothing you want. And that's misunderstanding of karma. So if I can speak for the Buddhists, let me try. What's the, quote, right understanding of karma? It's action. No judgment. It's just action. But it's action plus its reaction. It's action and then what happens. So it's both the seed and the fruit. Okay? And how do you divide them? That sentence. Action, from this traditional interpretation of karma, is wholesome action, unwholesome action, and what's called indeterminate action. There you go. There's karma. Now, how do you determine what is good karma, bad karma? Essentially, I guess the index would be something like harm. H-A-R-M, harm. Okay? If in the process of your acting, harm happens, then let's say pain or bleeding or destruction, or somebody's soul gets sent around again because you killed them, that would be harm. Therefore, it would be unwholesome action, which then brings about what? Unwholesome results. Here comes karma now. Because why? You set in motion those vector forces out there into the ozone. It's going to come back. What goes around comes around. That's our everyday definition of karma, which works. That one's correct. But it's also good. When I grew up, nobody ever said, oh, good karma's coming. You know, it was always bad. That was a misunderstanding. So here we go. He knows as it really is, good, bad, and indeterminate karma. But here it's not karma, it's Dharma practices, isn't it? So what's Dharma practices? Notice, how many of them do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We got 10 Dharma practices. So what's a Dharma practice? What does that mean? The key word is practice. We said the word heng in Chinese 10 times. Also read xing, depending on whether it's a noun or a verb. So a heng, a practice, is a key word in this whole sutra. Because they say, what makes a bodhisattva? What makes a bodhisattva different from, your uncle or your boss? It's two things, they say, practices and vows, V-O-W, a vow, like a promise. So practices is a big word if you're talking about bodhisattvas. What's a practice? Are you a meditator? If so, when you meditate, that's a practice. Are you a vegetarian? Thinking about it? Twice a month, maybe? If so, that's a practice. That's your practice of paying attention to your diet. Did you quit smoking? The not smoking is a practice, right? Because why? You have to do it. That's an interesting word, that word heng here, also read xing, because why? Can we find it? Let's see here. Okay, can you look at page 58 there, the number 58? Look at that first line, de, ru, pusa. Next line, fo, zi. Next line, wu ji. You see that third line down in Chinese? W-U-J-I-F-A-H-E-N-G. See the H-E-N-G there? Fourth character on the third line, that one, heng. What is it? That's one of the pictograms. It's a left footprint and a right footprint. Right? It's actually a picture. If you were like a police CSI investigator and a footprint. Get the camera, fill in the plaster cast. That's the shoe print of a left foot, a left step and a right step. You go left step, right step, right step. You xing, you travel, you walk. So that's the noun. It's the verb, to walk. If it's a noun, it's a practice, a step that you do. So meditation is a step you take towards awakening, right? Towards wisdom, towards kindness. That's a practice. Okay, am I going too fast? People follow? So what is the hallmark of the Mahayana, of this tradition, the Bodhisattva path, is they say 84,000 kinds of practices. Why not 83,999? Why 84,000? Because they say that's how many there are. So meditation, diet, cutting off bad habits, stopping swearing, reducing the number of four-letter words that you direct towards your partner, That's a wholesome, or your kids, or your dog, or your car. That's a really wholesome practice because you're giving your own mind a break from profanity. Finding some alternatives to the F word. And just where that word takes you in your mind compared to how you feel without calling something, Just removing it and experiencing that. It's a practice, right? It's a step you take. So practices, they talk about the Bodhisattva path, right? Pusadao. Bodhisattva path. So a path or a way, down the road you go. You walk it. Bodhisattvas walk all the way to Buddhahood, they say, over time. So, practices. What about the vows part? Vows are key to the Bodhisattva path, and I had no idea. I started as a meditator. I was a Zen guy in Kyoto. And Zen was the way Uchiyama Roshi interpreted it was called Shikan Taza, Chiguan Dazo. Nothing else. Only sitting. Dogen Zenji. Only sit. Only pay attention to your sitting. Nothing else. So vows, that's not sitting. Practices, well, it's a practice, but just sit. If you sit, you're the Buddha. That was the way they taught it. Okay, well, that's a very kind of essential, exclusive way to look at it. When I got to Gold Mountain Monastery and heard Master Hua, and more importantly, saw Master Hua do do the work of being an actual Buddhist monk in the world, the way they've been in the world for 2,500 years. Suddenly vows was this huge thing. Vows was big. It was important. And if we named 4 of them, let's look at 4. Every morning and every evening, twice a day, we recite 4 major Bodhisattva vows. So what is a Bodhisattva's vows? Check this out. There are 4, you could say, impossibilities. 4 propositions of impossibility. One is, living beings are infinite, and I'm going to save them all. Impossible, if they're infinite. Okay, yep, there you go. Face up, face front, there it is, impossible. 2, afflictions are endless. I'm going to cure them all, heal them all. So the blues, how do we translate afflictions? That's an uncommon word. American culture has a very suitable word, the blues. Trouble, right? Troubles are endless. I'm going to heal them all. Okay, 3, so methods of practice, uncountable. We said 84,000. I'm going to learn them all and practice them, every one. Take those steps. Every one, all the different ones. Finally, the Buddha's way, the Buddha's path is ultimate, supreme. I'm going to master it. So 4 vows, and we say them twice a day. Sometimes when I do those, I taste them, I try them out, instead of just reciting them off, and it's like, man, those bodhisattvas are like hopeless optimists. They're totally altruistic, right? The tallest mountain in the world, I'm going to climb it. Now. So yeah, there it is. Bodhisattva's vows. Here's this one here. You can't see him because it's night. If the sun was coming in the west, Earth Treasury Bodhisattva would shine right up. He's the one who's got the staff in his hand and got a red robe and a pearl here. He is said to be number 1 in vows. Best vows. Biggest vows of the entire Bodhisattva crew. Earth Bodhisattva's got the biggest vows. What are they? Oh my God. He says there are two vows. First one is, until the hells are empty, I'm not going to be a Buddha. So the story behind that goes, this bodhisattva by choice lives in the hells. Buddhism has hells. And they're painted as being just as hot as any, like, Bible Belt preacher paints the hells. On Sunday morning in white clapboard churches all across America. Earth Bodhisattva says, that's where I live. Wait until they're empty, I'll be the last one to leave. I'll turn the lights out in the hells, right? I'll lock the door, leave the key for the superintendent, and tell them to turn off the electricity and leave. So when are the hells empty? Don't hold your breath, right? So, but he says, I'll be the last one. Okay, that's number 1. 地狱为空，誓不成佛. Until the hells are empty, I will not become a Buddha. I'm going to go last to Buddhahood. Everybody else goes before me. So a long time, right? That's vow number 1. So if you think the way the Buddha described the universe is the hells are here, next is the ghosts, then are the animals. Then you get to the people. So they're called the three evil destinies, the three suffering realms. Hells, ghosts, animals, then people. So Earth Treasury Bodhisattva is going to pull everybody out of the hell realm, out of the ghost realm, out of the animal realm, into the human realm. Second vow, 众生度尽方正菩提. Only when every being has been taken to Buddhahood, only then will I realize Bodhi, awakening, the Buddha's awakening. So it's a double vow. First one is, I'm going to pull everybody out of the hells to the human realm. But then I'm going to take everybody out of the human realm and make them Buddhas. Then I myself go. So that's why 2 vows are said to be the heavy duty vows. Because he's sending himself to the end of the line over and over and over again. Which is really countercultural, you know. What do? We go, score! We want to score. We don't want to be losers. Nobody wants to be a loser. Not in this culture. We're winners. Big prize wheel, right? Spin the big prize wheel. So he says, no, I'm going to be a loser. I'm the biggest loser by choice. It's not one of our values. So Earth Store Bodhisattva is really interesting. That's a vow. Okay, Bodhisattva's vow. Master Hua put those in front of us and said, yeah, this is real stuff. Why would Bodhisattvas want practices and vows? The theory behind the Bodhisattva is he or she has already ended their suffering. And they want to help you end your suffering. They want to help us end our suffering. They could go first, but they choose not to. Instead, they stick around until we learn what they know. How do they get to that place? Practices. Meditation, changing their values to match the precepts, the Buddha's standards, using wisdom to deal with stuff, being compassionate, changing their vocabulary, right? Thinking different thoughts. All those are practices. There are 6 that are said to be the most, essentially bodhisattva practices. One is generosity. One is a kind of morality that is harmless. 3 is really patience. 4th is strong vigor. Coming back. Vigor. Then the last 2 are really interesting. The 5th one is meditative focus. When they meditate, they're like laser. Bunk. Even when they're not sitting, they're meditating. Samadhi, it's called. Then the last one is wisdom, prajna wisdom. They know how to see through the surface and get to the heart of stuff. First time, every time. So those are practices. So, generosity, morality, patience, vigor, samadhi, wisdom. And then those vows are the things that keep them motivated. They really tune in to people's pain. They can tell when somebody's hurting. And they focus on it and they say, okay, we're going to find a way to get you through that pain. So practices and vows are what make bodhisattvas. And this one, tonight, says, he knows as it really is. What? 10 things. We're finding out what he comes to this practice with, knowing already. He's already good at this stuff. Which one? The first one was, he knows wholesome, unwholesome, and indeterminate, neither wholesome, neither good nor bad, Dharma practices. What's a Dharma practice? Well, there you go. We've been talking about meditation, What's another one? This one's really interesting because it's so fundamental. It's the practice, a Dharma practice of living by cause and effect. What is living by cause and effect? It means you deeply understand that every action has a consequence, and you live by it. You don't lie hoping nobody heard you, or figuring that nobody heard you, they don't know, so you got away with it, right? Because why? Who's keeping score? Well, I am, right behind my mouth and my ears. Right there is the book that heard me tell a lie. That's the one that counts. Never mind where your lie went out into the world to confuse stuff. Master Hua, I remember this, we were in a Chan session at City of 10,000 Buddhas. If you haven't been up there, go take a look, up in Ukiah. We were in the fifth day of a week-long Chan session. Oh man, everybody was groggy. It's like, it's cold. We're frozen, and our minds were kind of in neutral. You know, the gear shift wasn't in any gear, just kind of getting through, waiting for the bell to ring. Master Hua goes stomping in, slams the door, goes up onto the Dharma seat, like up above, and just out of the blue, he goes, "You know what happens when you tell a lie?" We're all like, "Somebody say something?" He says, "One lie," says, "sets 100 waves on the waters of your mind." How many lies did you tell today? That's how many waves are on the waters of your mind. Think you can see to the bottom? How long do you have to wait before they're calm again? Got down off the seat, stomped out, slammed the door, and went away. We're like, and that was it. That was that afternoon's Dharma talk. And I'll never forget it because it was so totally out of context and random and harsh, you know. It's kind of like bong on the gong. And so I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, well, how many lies did I tell today? How many waves are on the waters of my mind? Well, you want to meditate so you can see down to the bottom, right? You want to be able to see what's on your mind. That's one good reason to meditate. Why do you meditate? So I know what's on my mind. If I know what's on my mind, I have a better chance of screwing up less, right? Still no guarantee. So if I have ripples on the water, I can't see my mind. Don't know what I'm thinking. There's people know Middlebury College in Vermont. Beautiful setting in the Green Mountains of Vermont, on Highway 7 north of New York City. And Middlebury has 2 campuses. One is called Bread Loaf. Bread Loaf, loaf of bread, Bread Loaf. Bread Loaf is up higher. It's in the mountains. Robert Frost was there for years. And Bread Loaf has a famous writers' conference. And so you go up to the Bread Loaf campus and you keep on walking up. And there's a trail about a mile up further. So we're already, Middlebury's high, but then you go to Bread Loaf campus, way up higher, and you walk up. There's this beautiful, beautiful Vermont blue pond, little lake. It's just about as big as the front part of our Buddha hall here, just that big. And I remember meditating beside that pond, and there were trout, real trout, in the rainbow trout up there. And they were fish are curious. Fish are really, they're not stupid at all. They're checking me out and watching, and maybe they were meditating along with me. I don't know, fish meditation, it's kind of hard to tell if they're meditating. But they were, checking me out. The fact that I was checking them out guaranteed that I was not meditating. I was just going through the motions, right? Checking the fish out. So somebody snuck up behind me and tossed a big rock right in the middle of the pond. And the rock splashed. And out of the stillness and the tranquility of this mirror-like pond, with watching the fish go through their stuff, this rock, my naughty classmates, right? This rock just broke the mirror of the pond, slowly made its way down, hit the bottom, and the fish, the reaction of the fish to this rock breaking the water had this image in my mind of the fish just scattering, and faster than your eye could follow. The fish were off to the shadows. And this rock made its way down to the bottom. And it was such a shock seeing the transformation of this mirror-like, it was just this perfectly calm, and by analogy, my mind ideally would have been that calm too. But this rock hit it with such violence, and it took minutes for the waves, the ripples, to come back to stillness. And when Master Hua stomped into the Buddha hall and shouted about one lie stirring up 100 waves, and then you multiply that by the number of lies you told, I was suddenly there in the Chan hall. I was carried back to the pond up at the Breadloaf campus in Vermont, watching that rock destroy the mirror of the pond. I was thinking, whoa, man. That's so teaching myself cause and effect, understanding the effect of a lie on my mind before anybody else hears it, came home to me. There's a wholesome Dharma practice saying, what? Cause and effect is really the way the universe is built. It's not a Buddhist principle. The Buddha didn't own cause and effect. He reported cause and effect. This is what I see. Here's how it is. And he was not the first one. No, that was already present in the Indian society the Buddha was born into. So then we get to the Hebrew scriptures, right? We get to the Torah. As you sow, so shall you reap. As you plant, so do you harvest. There you go. Cause and effect. So, what is a wholesome Dharma practice? Would be saying, I'm going to live my life as if I really deeply understood the truth of cause and effect. That nothing falls through the cracks. Gong bu tang jian, they say. Nothing you do is unnoticed in the garden of your mind. Right? So, who lives that way? Well, adults live that way. Who doesn't live that way? Kids don't live that way. Spiritual children, which is what? Dad will fix it. Dad's going to take care of it. Or, I know somebody, the fix is in. Right? The idea that somehow I got away with it. Because God wasn't watching. Or Mrs. McGillicuddy was down the hall. She doesn't know who put glue on her chair. So, I don't know. Did you ever put glue on your teacher's chair? Not recommended. So, the idea that somehow cause and effect was not functioning when I killed, steal, lusted, lied, or drugged myself, that's not a grown-up approach, because why? It's fundamentally flies in the face of cause and effect. So, one of the things that the Buddha called ignorance is 不信因果, not believing in cause and effect. There's a real Dharma practice, is to say, yeah, if I look through that lens at everything I do and say and think, it's kind of cold and sober, the idea that, yeah, in the end, it's my garden. In the end, my harvest. Right? Say, 自己吃饭,自己饱,自己生死,自己了. You eat your own food to fill yourself up. You put an end to your own mortality. 师父临经门,修行在个人. The teacher leads you to the door, but you have to walk in on your own steam. So there, that's an example. That's just a sample of what is Dharma practice, a wholesome one. An unwholesome Dharma practice would be, are there unwholesome Dharma practices? Name one. What would be an unwholesome Dharma practice? Hexing somebody, right? What's that? Voodoo. That's an unwholesome Dharma practice, right? Yeah. Just ask Shakespeare. Macbeth, we meet the witches, right? Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. The hex and negative, nasty mantra. Indeterminate Dharma practice? Maybe falling asleep in meditation. It's neither halfway good, halfway bad. Right? Decide you're going to recite a sutra, you wake up in the morning with the imprint of page 4 right across here. Recite right at the beginning. Indeterminate Dharma practice. He knows the reality of Dharma practices with outflows and those without outflows. Okay, now let's take a look at the Chinese. Xing, let's see, you lo, wu lo, fa heng. So, heng, practice, fa heng, Dharma practice, wu lo, no leaking. Dharma practice, yo lo, leaking. Leaking, not leaking Dharma practices. Okay? So, what's the difference? That's an interesting word, lo. It's really like a coffee filter. You put the coffee in it and you pour the water in and the water turns black on its way into the cup, right? That's an effective coffee filter. Because it leaks. So what's a Dharma practice that leaks and what's one that doesn't leak? A Dharma practice that doesn't leak is one where you don't practice to be noticed. You're not selling your cultivation. You're not advertising yourself as a bodhisattva. And man, oh man, do I know that one. When we first started meditating at Gold Mountain back in 1970, early 1970s, this is in San Francisco on 15th Street in Valencia. The lay people, myself, and remember Gary Linebarger was there, Alan Nicholson, and we were enthusiastic meditators, but we had no skill whatsoever. And a lot of what we were doing was just kind of experimenting. This was a time of big experimentation. Experimenting with substances and experimenting with alternate lifestyles and, trying stuff out. And we would meditate just to see who could sit longer, And the sessions then were an hour, the way they are now still. And I remember Zen Center used to sit 45 minutes, periods, not an hour. And that last 15 minutes is hard on your knees, right? We didn't know anything. We were just trying it. And we would look at pictures of Master Hua, and there's pictures of empty, there's full lotus, right? And so we would look at images like that. Gold Mountain had 3 Buddha images that are the same equivalent figures. And we would look and kind of imitate, try to look awesome. Try to look really, like a real meditator, like a real cultivator. And we would depending on what we had done the night before, we could sit longer or shorter. And I was a grad student at the time, and if I had a paper to do, I wouldn't get much sleep, but I would get down there, and you didn't want to look like a sloppy meditator, so we would, put on the pose and sit there, and then start to nod and nod. Then watch each other, because we meditated 2 hours every morning and 1 hour every night. That was the standard at the monastery. And on one hand, we were trying our best, and we had nothing to lose, and there wasn't any Buddhist Sangha in America to compare by. We were the first generation. So we would encourage each other, but a large part of it, if I'd been honest, I would have said, I'm too tired, I can't meditate. I wouldn't have put on the air, put on the style. But I had to keep up appearances for the guy sitting next to me, and he was the same. And then he got a girlfriend and got married, so I won that one, because he couldn't pretend. Once he was married, there was no more contest, and so until he actually decided finally he was going to become a monk, and then that was another whole story. So that's a practice with outflows, is instead of paying attention to my own garden, half of what I was doing was for show, and of course we were beginners, we had nothing to compare, So that would be a practice with outflows. So doing good, but doing it for a reputation, that's an outflow. It's not genuine good. And Master Hua used to pay a whole lot of attention. He would talk about that all the time. He would say, if you make an offering in order to become the number one best Dharma protector, no merit. You've spent all your merit in looking sideways. Why aren't you looking at the Buddha as you make your offering? Then you get 100% of the merit. So good done for others to see is not real good. Then he would say, evil done fearing that others will know is genuine evil. If you know it's wrong and you do it anyway and you hide it, that's real evil, he would say. So that was a parallel. What is it? On the surface, there's the appearance of Dharma practice. The motive, where the action is, the mind, is something else. And he would always take us past the surface to check the motive. Why did you do that? What's going on? And that was consistent. Check your motive. Okay? So, yo lo wu lo has to do with inside out. Check the inside first. And of course, practices without outflows are the best. That is to say, it's done with a wholesome intent. Check your purpose, check your intent. What's your motive? Right? So what else? Worldly, world-transcending Dharma practice. So a worldly Dharma practice would be, do I dare talk about it? Worldly and world-transcending. I prepared. No, probably not. No, don't do it. What's that? So, 3 of us just came back from China. And we attended a Buddhist Forum, global Buddhist Forum, with 1,000 Buddhists from 55 countries and regions. And there lot to be said. I actually have some things I wanted to share about it, because we've been back a couple weeks now, and we've only talked about it once. Profound event. and historic and all that. But when you mix politics and religion, you get a funny mix of worldly and world transcending. So, Buddhism defined as being good for the economy, there's a mix of worldly and world transcending, right? So, I won't go into details, but a worldly Dharma practice would be, I think, honestly, it's not in the practice, again, it's in your intent. What are you doing with it? So, for example, what about feeding people? If you feed people, that's a fairly worldly practice, but you could feed people with the intent of helping them open their hearts to deeper insight, and it becomes world transcending. It's not so much in the practice that you can tell whether it's worldly or world transcending. Somebody who is skillful and wise can take a very ordinary practice and take it right to the heart, find the principle behind it. Here's an example. If somebody had told me even 4 years ago that I would be using the internet to talk to China once a week, I would have said, no way. And they said, on YouTube, I would have said, double no way. YouTube that's not the medium for Buddha Dharma, Well, sure enough, tonight, we've got, how many, too soon to count? Do you know how many people? 53? 53 on YouTube. Wise people who stayed home instead of braving the air quality in the Bay Area. 53. And then, can Cliff report? Cliff and Sam? We have, 53 currently watching on YouTube. And then we have some friends in Australia wearing headphones, hearing my English come over their headphones, translating it into Mandarin, and sending it past the Great Firewall into China, where people are picking it up on YY.com. And there's going to be another 30 or 40 there, probably. So, there we go. And how mundane, how worldly is YouTube? Well, depends on what you use it for. So, it's intention, I suppose. There's worldly and world transcending Dharma practices. If you look at our very own sutra, our Flower Garland Sutra, we have a chapter called chapter 39, where a pilgrim goes out and meets 53 teachers, one after the other. And those 53 teachers include a prostitute and a ship's captain and an incense couple, 2 incense makers, and doctors, and Brahmins, and a king who looks like he's a torturer, and ascetics throwing their bodies in pits of oil, flaming pits of oil. So he goes out and he meets all these teachers, and not all of them, but many of the teachers tell him that they're projecting an appearance, but in fact the reality is they're helping. Their appearance is extremely worldly, right? The courtesan she's dressed up like a woman of pleasure, right? But in fact she's teaching people who she can't reach other ways. So worldly and world transcending is not such a clear boundary. And this Bodhisattva knows as they really are, which is which. Okay, conceivable, inconceivable Dharma practices. Oh my. Conceivable and inconceivable Dharma practices. Conceivable means within the realm of language and thought. Inconceivable means goes beyond language, goes beyond conceptualization. Doesn't mean it's not real. Totally real, but you can't think about it. Any numbers from China? 33. Okay, so we got 80 people listening. Who knew that was possible? Fixed and unfixed Dharma practices. A fixed Dharma practice would be like our morning ceremony, 4 o'clock. We're up doing the chanting. An unfixed Dharma practice would be whether or not you show a movie at lunch. Right? It's unfixed. If it's a useful instructional video, somebody speaking Dharma, show it at lunch. It's not fixed. At City of 10,000 Buddhas, we listen to Master Hua's voice. Not fixed. Sound hearers. Okay, now at this point, look at what happens. Sound hearers, solitary Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Tathagatas, conditioned, unconditioned. Dharma practices that take him into the realm of saints and sages, who are beings who are already awake, each with their own specific. For example, sound hearers, they hear the Four Noble Truths. Solitary Buddhas, they hear the 12 links of conditioned arising. Bodhisattvas, 6 perfections. He hears those. Dharma practices for the Tathagatas, well, greatly skilled wisdom, expedient wisdom. Conditioned Dharma practices are practices that precede nirvana. Unconditioned is practices involving nirvana. Okay, we talked about karma, how we misunderstand it. Nirvana is another one. That's one of those words, it's already English. And yet, what's really going on with nirvana? There are multiple levels of that nirvana. And essentially what it means is no further becoming. Doesn't continue. Everything else, birth and death, continues. Nirvana doesn't continue. Okay. Was everybody full about 20 minutes ago? And you're just being polite? It's like, he's still going, right? So we've had 10 Dharma practices. We've got all these new words, all these new definitions. If you've checked out, I totally sympathize. We're trying to make sure that we don't zoom past anything without digesting it. Taking nothing for granted. We want to, there we go. I wanted to introduce you to an unfixed Dharma practice. This is a Gibson mandola from 1913. Do the math and you discover this is a 105-year-old gentleman with stained maple back and spruce top, made in Kalamazoo, Michigan, by the Gibson Company. This particular instrument comes with its own rattlesnake rattle inside. Little chunk of a rattlesnake. Don't ask me why, but it does. missed that note. So I have a friend named Steve Swan, who is a wise fellow when it comes to musical instruments. He's made guitars and basses and string basses. And you just know Steve has handled thousands of instruments. And I was just getting into recovering my interest in stringed instruments as a Dharma teaching device, as an expedient means. Steve Swan said, he said, Alan Sinaki's got that mandola. That's your instrument. You need that instrument. And I said, I think I really want a mandola. No, you don't. You want Alan Sinaki's mandola. Are you sure? Yeah, that's your instrument. You should play that. And I'm like, Alan? Hi, Heng Sure. Yeah, Steve Swan says, yeah, I'm waiting for it. Here, it's over here. Come and get it. It's like, okay. So that's how this 1913 Gibson mandola came into my life. And in an interfaith gathering, Rosalia Guitarez, who is a magic woman, she's an amazing woman from the Quechua tribe in the mountains of where Brazil and Argentina meet. She was here for an interfaith gathering, the United Religions. And I said, Rosalia, what is it about this? And she took it and she went, oh. And it was a full moon. And she held it up to the moon and smudged it with sage. Then she put it on the ground and she started chanting in Quechua language. And and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And she's holding it up. She says, this will hold many souls. Take care of it well, she said. And I'm like, okay, I certainly will. So this instrument has a real history with me, but I've... Namo Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, 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 Yin Bodhisattva, Namo Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, Guan 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 Yin Bodhisattva. Guan Yin Bodhisattva, Guan Yin Bodhisattva, Guan Yin Bodhisattva, Namo Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva. So anyway, I don't know, is that a Dharma without flows or without outflows? I'm not sure. But it's certainly, what a beautiful voice. I wish I could sing this well when I'm 105, right? So. Indeed. So, okay, what we heard is 10 descriptions of what a ninth stage bodhisattva knows. He knows as it really is these Dharma practices. That's what he brings, or she gender neutral. That's what she brings to her preparation for learning more about the ninth practice. Next week we're going to check out, look at what comes up next week in the next paragraph. The word dense thicket. There. A lot. Let's count them. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got 11. Dense thickets. Choulin in Chinese. Choulin. Dense thicket. Meaning, you ever been through a dense thicket? Like think of a bramble. Anybody been to Buddha Root Farm, tried to walk through the blackberries? You don't, right? You don't? Like Alice, Tina, you ever like get off the road and walk through those berries? You don't. Say again? Seriously? With, what is she? She must like have thick like leather pants on or something. Long socks, but still, oh man. The only thing that can make it through those brambles are little birds and rabbits. Rabbits have this fur that is, flexible and they can slip right through. Dense thickets, they stop you. So dense thickets, but it's analogy. It's not that their mind has berries, brambles. No, thorns in their minds. Maybe they have thorns in their head. But mostly it refers to their attitudes. Their attitudes, just like berry vines, they stick you everywhere, right? You can't move. So the Bodhisattva has to work with beings whose minds are just like brambles. How about that? Yeah. Okay. Now, I think we're at the end of our translated, we got to add to it. We'll get the next chunk and we'll add it. Our books are getting thicker as we go, right? That's the joy of this. So one of the things I thought I would do is talk a little bit about this event that Jinchuan Shi, Jinwei Shi, and I attended in Putian, Fujian. And this is number 5. The Chinese say we're going to invite all the Buddhists of the world together. And 55 countries and regions, pretty good representation. Buddhists from Mongolia, Buddhists from Russia, Buryatia, Buddhists from far-off places like the United States. Believe it or not. And come together. This time it was a couple of days. It's often been 3 days or more. And do a remarkable amount of talking. A lot of talking. Words. This is one of 9 books that they printed up. This is the thinnest one. Stack everybody in their room, all 800 to 1,000 attendees got a stack of books, which were the speeches given for 2 days of speeches. And there were, each country had a representative who gave a welcome speech, and we heard 40 welcoming speeches. Talk about the first noble truth of suffering. Boy, oh boy. They really brought it home. There was no doubt about the Buddha's clear perception of suffering and his description of it. Listen to 40 speeches. And I gave one of them, so I share in the cruelty, part of the cruelty. So I thought I would, here we are, I've been to 4 out of 5 of the forums. I missed the first one. I've been to the last 4. And I got a chance to, what a blessing, to be able to represent, Master Hua's disciples, City of 10,000 Buddhas, Dharma Realm Buddhist Association, and America. So our theme, and you're going to laugh, I'll read it to you. Here's this is the logistics book that they passed out to everybody. The 5th World Buddhist Forum is being held on October 28th to the 30th, 2018 in Putian, Fujian, China. Hosted by the Buddhist Association of China and the China Religious Culture Communication Association. Organized by the Fujian Province Organizing Committee of the 5th World Buddhist Forum. The forum, with the theme, all together now, Exchange for Mutual Learning, Middle Way for Perfect Harmony. Isn't that just so intuitive? Includes main activities such as the opening ceremony, keynote speeches, sub-forums, the TV forum, the new media forum, and the closing ceremony. It also features activities such as prayer ceremony, 1,000 monastic feast, gala performance, common aspiration, tree planting, photography exhibit, and more. Stars add glory to the sky. Diverse civilizations make the world colorful. This session serves as a platform through which world Buddhists can communicate, learn from each other, and establish Dharma affinities, thus contributing our wisdom and strength to building a collective future for humanity with a shared destiny. Sounds good, doesn't it? And on the surface of things, it worked. Nobody died, as far as I know. I didn't see any major injuries or no sirens going to and from. So, and everybody came together and said a lot of things and did everything that they talked about. And, I don't mean to be snide or snarky. It was a big event. It was logistically, it was beautiful, beautifully done. This logo, for example, was on everything from every book to every food bowl to the paper wrapper around your set of headphones, imprinted with this logo. Somebody who the Chinese really know how to do large scale events like this. Beautiful. And the three of us and Madalena, our host, who took us, our guide, talked at length together about what we saw. And here's an example. We're in the category of foreign guests, monks from overseas. And we stayed in 3 different hotels. And if you think 1,000 attendees, in the morning, when it was time to go to the venue, which is about 7 or 8 miles down the road, we all got in buses. And the buses had numbers, and we had to get out onto the bus at 7:10 and 7:20 in preparation for departure at 7:30. And everybody's on these buses. There were about, how many in our, maybe 17, 18 buses. And we all set off in caravan at high speed through the streets of Putian, which is 1.2 million. It's a tiny city by Chinese standards, 1.2 million. Who's ever heard of Putian, right? Well, we have now, 1.2 million people. And the city of Putian came to a total stop while our buses went zooming down the street. Every intersection for several miles had a policeman standing like this, while all the good citizens of Putian waited for our 17 buses to zoom, zoom, zoom. And on both sides of the road were these dazibao, these big banners. Warmly congratulate the Buddhists from around the world for the success of the 5th Global Buddhist Forum and introduction to our beautiful city, Putian. And it was just charming, to see the way they set the stage for this Global Buddhist Forum. Now, whether the citizens of Putian were happy, for the coffee cooling in their cups while they're watching the buses go by, come on, jeez, I'm going to be late. I don't know. They may not have been so happy. But the street after street for miles, the police are holding the traffic back while we zoom along, And they spared no expense. My goodness, there's a lot of effort put into making this a complete success. Jinchuan.
That reminded me of the Buddhist story. That experience actually really reminded me. We hear that Buddha story when his father wanted to protect him when he went out by having the streets lined with people like cheering and happy, and so he went to see old age sickness, and they was like, wow, this is possible because you can actually see this creation of a whole experience. So anyway, that was a very interesting moment.
It was what?
Free of dukkha.
Free of dukkha, no dukkha. Yeah, that's right. Now, whether the next street had any of those posters, I don't know. We didn't get off the main drag to see whether the stage was set through the city. I don't know. Probably not. But anyway, the Chinese they meant it when they said warmly welcome. That was really, really well done. If I were to, and I had Phoenix TV Network, this little reporter with her microphone sticking in my face saying, what would you do differently in this? Tell us where we fell short here. What would you change? And she meant it. She wasn't, there was a little bit of an edge there. And she was giving me a chance to be critical. And I didn't step into that noose. I didn't step into that flaming pit and say, you know what I thought I didn't like. No, I didn't say that. So I said, it would be really nice if there were more opportunities to actually talk with each other instead of talking at each other. And I said, I totally understand. You have 1,000 people in 2.5 days. How are you going to do it? But I said we could assign interest groups and sit in circles. It's a very effective Buddhist way of communicating. And I said, you know something else that I would like to see an improvement? Could we take 5 minutes before every session to sit together and meditate? Because we didn't have 5 minutes, even 5 minutes of meditation. Didn't happen. And she was like, I would say that loudly again. It would have been nice to take 5 minutes, the way, moment of silence. We're used to that. 5 minutes to sit still together. We're all Buddhists here, right? So let's meditate together. Yeah, I think that could be done. That's not a criticism. That's an improvement. That's a suggestion. So one of my critiques, one of my reflections was that the experience could be enhanced greatly if the number of speeches where it's one mouth to every ear, one speaker, everybody's quiet listening, the one to the many paradigm of information dissemination, if that could be alternated with feedback. And of course the danger is if there's feedback, you can't control what everyone is going to say, and you might hear something you don't want. But in the forum, I found only goodwill. I didn't get any sense that there were angry people, people with grudges, or just being suppressed, waiting for a chance to, throw something unhappy. I didn't sense that anywhere. And if there had been, I would have picked it up. 1,000 people. I felt people really wanting a chance to share. But the event is set up so tightly with a short time that there were all these sub-themes. In the sub-theme that we were on was called Buddhism in the Americas, Europe. Ours was called Buddhism in China, North America, and Europe. There were how many scholars? Gave their papers? 20? 20 scholars, each was 6 minutes. And they read, sat down. Another one, next. And they played the theme song, everybody going up to the stage, the trumpets, and they faded out, and he's a distinguished professor from so-and-so gives his views on the maritime transmission of Buddhism, or, reporting on Buddhism in Australia. And 6 minutes, dong, get down, you're next. Over and we're like, we sat in that room for how many hours? 4 hours. 30 speeches for 8 minutes each. And if I didn't present in a sub-forum. Had I done so, I would have wanted people my chance to give my ideas. In the years past, I have been one of those. It's not very effective in terms of sharing. It's kind of like reading the menu. You only hear about the food, you don't get to chew it. And there's no nutrition. You're not full, even though you're bloated with words. So what are you going to do? You're going to deny the distinguished representative from Myanmar his chance? No, of course you can't. So I'm sympathetic, and if it were my event, we'd have to think long and hard about how to do it different. But it was quite a thing to see, and the woman who communicated from the forum to us, getting us there, asked me this week to write up feedback, having now 2 weeks gone. So I'm going to suggest the things that I'm telling everybody now. And going to say that we could explore other means of communication that would satisfy even more. And all of the moves were there. The topics on Buddhism and the environment, an entire sub-forum. Topic on Buddhism and the media, whole sub-forum. But when it's only one-to-many paradigm, my voice, all those ears listening, it's one kind of sharing that prevents any actual sharing. It's an old model. It doesn't work. So just opening your eyes and seeing Buddhists from around the world is a good thing. And the Chinese have done that for 5 times now, every 3 years, bringing people together. It'd be nice to go deeper. We didn't get to hear any Buddha Dharma. There wasn't any. One moment at the beginning, Lu Shangzan. Oh, when the monks all come together to sing Lu Shangzan. Wow, goosebumps. Really, really well done. That was the beginning. But after that, it was all nuts and bolts. History, culture, economics. Not so much about the Buddhist teaching. And that sounds funny, doesn't it? But there's a way to do it that allows inspiration to creep in around the edges. So, anyway, I'll see how I do it. What comes up when I write back to her, Miss Chun. My talk was about Master Hua bringing Buddhist traditions together so that when it's time to talk to other religions, we speak with a unified voice. As long as the Mahayana looks down on the Theravada disrespects the Mahayana, small vehicle, 小乘，小乘，治疗阿罗汉，太自私。你们大乘佛法都是银行管理者，你们吃了多少餐一天了？4餐、5餐都有。Then we can't really get together. So Shifu put the Mahayana Theravada together and then inspired us to go out to talk to other religions. So I said, if I could create my ideal Buddhism, after observing the Buddhist world for 42 years as a bhikshu, in my ideal Buddhist world, to create, can you say it? To create sharing for mutual learning, the middle way for perfect harmony. One way to improve intra-Buddhist harmony and mutual learning is to remove the word small vehicle from our vocabulary. Hinayana. Instead, say Southern tradition or the tradition of the elders, Theravada. This is a first step to heal the split between Northern and Southern traditions, so that when Buddhists step out into interfaith gatherings where non-Buddhists are present, we arrive as a unified body of wisdom and compassion. Surely the Buddha's intent was not to have various schools of his disciples in competition with each other, or distant from each other and out of communication. So that was what I said. And I had a dozen, mostly Theravada Buddhists, come up to me after and say, "Good talk." Good talk. So, all right. And I ran out of time. I had the story about Abhayagiri not burning in the fire. I had that story. It's printed. Here's my talk in the book. But I didn't, in the speaking of it, I had the talk. Can I tell it to you? You want to hear it? So I didn't write it in vain. So I said, although we want to join with our brothers and sisters from other religions in meaningful dialogue, if we fail to recognize the value of our own treasures of wisdom, it's harder to dialogue as equals. Master Hua pointed out the need for Chinese Buddhists to open up our Mahayana sutras and translate them into the world's languages. This is a serious missed opportunity to spread the Dharma. Our sutras have such profound principles of wisdom and compassion that create genuine benefits for humanity. Before Buddhism can become a truly world religion and fulfill its potential to spread the Dharma and Chinese culture far and wide, we must share our own sutras with the world. For example, we know that anywhere in the world, hotel rooms have bedside tables. In the drawers of most of those tables, you find a copy of the Gideon Bible in the local language of the country. How many times have you opened up the drawer to find a Buddhist sutra? Me, once, on Tian Tai Shan. In the ideal Buddhism that I want to design, in every hotel room in the world, when you open up the drawer, you'll find the Holy Bible as well as a copy of the Lotus Sutra, the Amitabha Sutra, and the Vajra Prajna Paramita Sutra. Why not? Now I'd like to share a story about wherever people cultivate the way humanity benefits in inconceivable ways. In October of 2017, 1 year ago, severe wildfires broke out in Northern California, causing our neighboring Buddhist community of Abhayagiri Forest Monastery to evacuate in the dark of night. 28 people fled the fires, not knowing when they would return and whether or not they would find their newly renovated monastery intact when the fires were out. Our CTDB security officer is sitting in the middle of our Buddha hall as we speak. The monks of Abhayagiri found shelter at the city of 10,000 Buddhas for a week after the two communities blending together in ceremonies, meditation, receiving offerings the two communities blending together in ceremonies, meditations, receiving offerings from the laity, and in daily work. After 1 week of anxiety about their home, the local fire marshals gave permission for them to return. Driving into the mountain, surrounded by scenes of burned out homes and vineyards on every side, the monks worried about what they would find. As they approached their monastery, they were greeted by a group of firefighters who had used the monastery parking lot to manage their fire trucks and equipment. One of the firefighters, an Apache Indian from New Mexico, said, "We got firefighters here who've seen a lot, but we'd never seen anything like this. Your forest rejected the flames. The flames reached the edge and then were pushed back. The flames burned right up to the edge of your property and then stopped. It's as if something was protecting your forest. Not a blade of grass burned. This is a spiritual place. Whatever you're doing inside, keep it up." The monks discovered that both their monastery and their neighbors, a Catholic organization where monks live and pray all day, all year round, were spared by the forest fires that burned on every side. But next door, on the same mountain, a Thai Buddhist monk built a monastery, but had no disciples and no cultivation going on in his place. He set up the monastery and then returned to Thailand, leaving the monastery in the hands of one caretaker. When the fires came, his monastery burned to the ground. The fierce heat melted all the Buddha images so their faces were unrecognizable. 3 monasteries, but only 2 survived the catastrophe of forest fires. The Buddhist and the Catholic places alike received the protection of the Devas and the Dharma protectors because both communities were doing spiritual cultivation inside. The empty Bodhimanda, although it held the superficial signs of Buddhism, without people doing the Buddha's work inside, did not get protection. So that's the story. I didn't get to read that at the forum. I wish I'd had time. But if people got the book, they got to read it. Then I finished by saying, finally, it's time now to let go our attachments from the past when we didn't have contact with each other, much less with believers of other religions. The old tribal views no longer apply to people of the 21st century living in the global village and being heard immediately in China over the internet and in Australia. So now in the 21st century, in a time of ecological crisis, Buddhism can lead the way towards mutual learning and harmonious exchange. We can unify the northern and southern traditions and bring the teachings of wisdom and compassion into our interfaith conversations. And in this way, demonstrate the value of religion in solving the troubles of our modern world. In this way, exchanging for mutual learning and the middle way for perfect harmony can lead from here in Putian, Fujian, across China to the west and around the world to bring inspiration and hope to every living being for liberation. Amitabha. Amitabha. And everybody went, is he done? That's speech number 42. Oh. So, anyway. So, we had a wonderful experience at the forum, and priceless. You know, what an incredible opportunity to see things we'd never seen before and to share things we'd never shared. And we are in conversation to see whether it might not be possible for us to do it in America next time. We'll see. Y'all got a songbook in front of you? Can you turn to page 99? That's the note I wanted. This, if we had had a chance in the forum to just hear this, it would have been what I say, we didn't hear enough Dharma. We didn't hear the Buddha's teaching. We heard interpretations of the Dharma filtered through thousands of years of institutional identity, but we didn't hear these kind of sounds presented to digest, presented just as they are to work on your wisdom, right? So this is what Master Yongjia, Tang Dynasty monk, 665 to 712. He's a 7th century, 8th century monk, truly enlightened. This is one of those enlightened monks. And he's looking at his awakened mind. The mirror of the mind is bright without a flaw. Everything's reflected, you can see it all. All 10,000 things revealed, perfect, round, and bright. No inside, no outside, just brilliant, pure light. Kind of low, but if you get there, pitch your voice down a little bit. Next verse, here we go. Goodbye to good and evil, goodbye to loss and gain. In stillness and tranquility you never ask again. Your wisdom mirror was coated thick, you never wiped it clean. Now it shines without a flaw, there's nothing you can't see. Miss that note every time. There it is. There it is. All right. Next one. The mind is the root, and dharmas are all dust. Mind and dharmas both are like a mirror, stained and cracked. Polish out the stains and cracks, the mirror shines like new. Forget both mind and dharmas, the nature is now true. Go one more time. That string, I need to tune that up. Turn it over now. Let's see what else we got. That was the mirror of the mind. This is 3 on the wish-fulfilling pearl. This song has 63 verses. You just pick out, different topics. Here we go. This is the Mani Pearl, a treasure still unknown. Look to the Tathagata, but find it on your own. It works in 6 uncanny ways. It's here and now it's gone. A single round and perfect light. Now it's hidden, now it's shown. Too low. We got to pitch that up a bit. Let's see now, just for fun. Hold on. We're going to invite Mr. Mandola to see if he can. Same pitch. That's not going to help. We can do it without. Let's pitch it up so everybody can sing it. Number 2, once you get the root. Here we go. Once you get the root, you can let the branch tips be. Like a jeweled moon that shines in lapis lazuli. Now that you have understood this wish-fulfilling gem, your benefits to self and others truly never end. What's the wish-fulfilling gem? That's your own mind. Last one, and then we'll stop torturing you with it. Here we go. The king among all dharmas, there's nothing more sublime. As every Tathagata together realized, hear my explanation of this wish-fulfilling jewel. Everyone who picks it up in faith will know the truth. Truth and jewel don't rhyme, do they? But it's a close. It's an almost rhyme. Okay, anyway, we're still working on it. That's come to you directly from the Tang Dynasty, filtered through our translation. Let's talk about what is coming up. We're on our way down to Boulder Creek for a picnic today, and it didn't happen because of the air quality index, which is happily the world's worst. Bay Area of Northern California had the worst quality air in the world the last few days. Came directly down from Butte County and landed here and didn't move. The East Bay had it worse than San Francisco. At 3 in the afternoon, San Francisco was 140, East Bay was 212 here. And apparently Vallejo was worse. Vallejo was in the purple. They had to invent a new color to describe how bad air quality could get. Tuesday night, it's supposed to rain. So we got Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday to go. If you can choose not to go outside is better. Those of you who are listening outside of the Bay Area, an unprecedented event happened. The big game was canceled, postponed. What is the big game? The big game is the good school, University of California at Berkeley, versus the other school. Stanford, the farm, home of the tree. And anyway, 55 years it has not been canceled. The last time it was canceled was World War II. Just an event, World War II. They canceled it. So they canceled it today because it was supposed to take place, and they said, no way. We're going to put athletes and fans and cheerleaders and alumni out there breathing the world's worst air. So December 1st, it's going to be played in Memorial Stadium. So we don't do politics. We're Buddhists, right? We don't pick sides. We're not partisan here. So Stanford's won the last 8 years in a row. Grr. They got the axe. So anyhow, that event didn't happen. We canceled our picnic. We canceled tomorrow's Guqin recital, which was Alan Yip's class was going to have it. Marty canceled his lecture last night. And what else? Tomorrow at Gold Sage Monastery in San Jose, there is an 8 precepts transmission, followed by a Emperor Liang for a week. 7 days? 10 days, 7 days. So if you want to bow the Liang Huang Bao Chan, and do you have to dengji? Do you have to sign up? Anybody going? Gold Mountain is also doing it. A lot of folks go to Gold Mountain. That's rocking on Gold Mountain. There's standing room only. It's really fun over there. A lot of energy. Yeah, Gold Mountain is on Sacramento Street, 800 Sacramento Street, right above the Bank of America on Grant there. So that's happening. And starting on Friday next, we have a 3-day Amitabha recitation session here. If you want to put up a paiwei, a plaque, you want to talk to 金佛师怎么要写牌位的话怎么办？跟你说吗？还是什么？ OK， 那就跟谁讲呢？要登记，有个名单吗？还早。OK， 在外边。OK， should anybody want to put up a plaque, a paiwei, maximum 2 per person? If you want to, up to 2, you can not write 1 or write 1 or 2, but no more per person. And there's a list outside to sign up on. If you'd like to, put the information down. We'll be happy to put it up for you. And then so we'll have a 3-day focused around Thanksgiving. And what else is happening? The Eightfold Precepts. Same thing that are going to be transmitted tomorrow in San Jose at Gold Sage are going to be transmitted here on Friday morning. Friday morning, starting at what time? 8 a.m. 金和师? Yes. Today is this is Saturday. There's Sunday. There's Monday. The following Monday, not 2 days from tonight, but the following Monday at Dharma Buddhist University, in our new university building at City of 10,000 Buddhas, we have a special guest coming, a musician, a composer, a guitarist whose name is Alex DeGrassi. Alex is a native San Franciscan. In the 80s and 90s, he was really well known as one of the founders of a label called Windham Hill. Windham Hill created the thing called New Age music. Alex began busking in the street with his guitar in London and all, but he is one of the true pioneers of fingerstyle guitar that later turned into jazz and folk and all. But Alex has played at Carnegie Hall, played at the Montreux Jazz Festival in Europe. He's probably among the 10 most distinguished guitar players America ever produced, a composer. He just played at the Mendocino Ukiah Community Concerts, and he lives in Redwood Valley, interestingly. He's a friend of mine. I've taken a class with him before. Alex has agreed to come to DRBU to talk with the students and faculty and us about music, creativity, spirituality. So answer questions like, when you're creative and the muse comes to you, how do you prepare for it and when does it go? Because he has, 14, 15 CDs out. He's, how many? 17 CDs. And he's qualified to answer that question. It doesn't stay. The muse comes and goes. What's it like? And what practices do you have to prepare yourself for performance the way he does? So, anyway, so bring your questions. That's Monday night, 7:45 at DRBU. I'll be up there, not this Monday, but the following. In Ukiah, yeah, at Wampochung, City of 10,000 Buddhas. Anybody notice anything different on our altar? No, I didn't. Oh, look! We have 3 new Buddhas, new to us, but old to the world, 500 years old. And those of you, I don't know if you're hearing a translation to China, maybe you can't see them, but we don't know their whole story yet. We're still learning, but they're going to be with us for a year or 2. This may not be their permanent home, but we're going to. It's an offering from a family of collectors in Southern California, Wong family, and they're very gracious to offer them. But they were, for the last few years of their lives, they've been in a mowing shack down near Temecula, gathering cobwebs and dust. And now they're back where they belong, having people bow to them and make offerings so they can release light. So we've located a curator, a restorer who knows what to do to keep them from cracking further. You're 500 years old. If I look as good as that in 500 years, I must be doing something right, So we found somebody who knows how to take care of them, and will restore them to a certain level. But if people want to take a closer look, you're welcome to do that. Please don't touch, because oils will change it. So, okay, all right. Anything else, Mioa? No, we haven't transferred merit. Let's do that. The back of your songbook. If people know Hualien, Taiwan, the elder layman Li Zhihong passed away with cancer, and he was the one who brought Buddhism into the penitentiary. He did prison outreach like nobody else. He actually single-handedly brought a dozen men, particularly, out of a life of desperation and no hope into, optimism, Buddhism, faith, trust. I met him. He took us into the Hualien prison penitentiary for serious offenses more than once. And wonderful man, Li Zhihong. So anybody who wants to transfer merit is welcome. Now, we don't have to say anything about the fires. I mean, it's on our hearts and on our heads that now 1,000 people are missing from the fires that came so fast in Butte County. The towns not only of Paradise, but also Concow, C-O-N-C-O-W, didn't get any press, but suffered just the same. And the stories are just now coming out about how, the 82-year-old man who was pushed into 60-degree water while the fires came overhead like a freight train, and he survived. But his frail grandpa, somebody said, "We're not leaving you." He said, "Yeah, I can't go, we can't do this." And they pushed him into the water, and the fire burned all the eyebrows off, but he survived. And stories like this, and a dozen people jumped into freezing water because the fire was on them, and they survived, including this 82-year-old man who didn't think he could do it, but he did. So, man, oh man. And those who didn't get out. So we can transfer merit. Those folks, think of their Thanksgiving, think of their Christmas, 9,000 single-family homes burned. 9,000 families who lost it all. Right? So we can transfer merit. So. Last year, Santa Rosa, Redwood Valley. This year, Paradise. Next year, right? May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. One more. May all become compassionate and wise. So avoid strenuous exercise. If you can not go out, is better than going out. Nobody really knows the effect of this air quality on us for the next 3 or 4 days, but certainly we're sharing it together. It's a new experience in the Bay Area to have this collective karma together. So that makes it changes the nature of it a bit as we endure it with our neighbors. And if we have a roof over our head, we're still doing good compared to the folks who lost it all. So, silver lining, right? See you all next week. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo